Well, we begin here. The Democratic Party is facing a reckoning. Brand new polls do not look good. They paint a brutal reality for Democrats, while President Trump is soaring to new highs. Both of these entities setting records. So first, the Democrats. A new NBC News poll shows just 27% of voters have a positive view of the Democratic Party. That's the lowest positive rating in the last 35 years of NBC polling. And when you hop on over to CNN, they found that just 29% of voters see the party in a positive light. Now, that, too, is the lowest ever in CNN polling going back 30 years. Two historic lows for Democrats. President Trump, it's the opposite. He is surging. NBC found that Trump's job approval rating at 47%, plus his personable favorable rating at 46%, and also a 44% number of Americans who believe the country is on the right track, combined to be three all-time, all-record highs for President Trump's political career in the history of NBC's polling. Kaylee, this is stunning. I mean, these are historic numbers by two different polling entities, by their own standards, painting two very different pictures of where voters are with the two parties.
Yeah, really bad news for Democrats, but I'm sure if they put Jasmine Crockett on CNN a few more times, that'll take care of the problem. It's amazing to see as a Gen Zer how the Democratic Party has imploded, because Democrats were ascendant for much of my life. I grew up in the Obama years when Democrats enjoyed a 60% favorability rating, and then you compare it to this. In fact, that same poll found that just 7% of Americans have a very favorable view of Democrats right now. And by the way, a different poll found that 7% of Americans also think that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. So I have a question for those 7% of Americans. And I think it's because, Democrats dominated political culture, but they also dominated so much of the cultural institutions that really formed my childhood. They dominated Hollywood. They dominated the education system that I grew up in. And then all of that has started to crumble over the past several years because they got arrogant. They thought that they could continue to hollow out the working class and pass economic policies that only favored the upper 1%, and with immigration policies that replaced American workers with cheap migrant labor without facing any consequences. They thought that they could start to stifle speech online without facing any consequences. And they thought that they could continue to bribe voters into remaining party loyalists, including Gen Zers like myself, with vague plans of student loan debt forgiveness that they knew would never come to fruition. And we woke up. We realized what was happening. And this is what the Democrats are experiencing right now. And the problem is that they spent so long running with this controlled narrative that they have never figured out what they actually stand for or who they want to represent. So now they have no clear leader, no agenda, no message. They can't even decide which tactic of resistance is better, whether it's singing Kumbaya on the House floor or vandalizing Teslas. And this is the alternative? This is what you're providing with us? Right. No wonder Trump's approval ratings are so high.
Emily, on the note of the Democrats, CNN and NBC both found the same answer to a question about what Democrat voters think their party should be doing. And this, in a nutshell, is the conundrum Democrats find themselves in. Because I'm sure part of the party says we need to moderate. Look at what Gavin Newsom did with women's sports. But look at this. Democrats should, 57% of their own party say they should mainly work to stop Republicans. NBC found 65% say stick to your positions, even if it means not getting things done. You can't lose the anchor of your party, and you risk doing so if you take the Gavin Newsom approach.
Well, feelings are the worst anchor, right? Because they go up and down. And what we see there is the fissure in leadership, because there's a fissure in the party because they don't have an anchor that isn't based on something that's mercurial, vague, unconstitutional, most likely, and also not reflective of the center of their party. So I thought what jumped out at me is this, that AOC, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, was seen and identified by 1 out of 6 of those polled by CNN under the age of 45 that identified as liberal, as, quote, emblematic of the party's values. But not one Democratic leader polled in double digits, and no one moderate for those same values, meaning that the Democrats don't have someone that is emblematic of the values because their values aren't solidified. They have no idea what their values are. Now, you contrast that with a Republican Party, you contrast that with the GOP, and you can articulate with specificity what our tenets are. It's the right to privacy, the right to worship, the freedom of speech. It's constitutional values, and it's against the backdrop of a lean, efficient government. But to your point, when you introed this, we have AOC saying, how dare that they use the one bit of leverage to actually vote with the Trump points, but that she says Medicare and Social Security are all at risk, but they're not. So the whole point is that if entitlement programs, is that the hook that you want to hang your hat on? Well, those aren't at issue. The issue is the massive waste to the tune of millions of dollars per minute that this government is spending on behalf of those policies that actually mean nothing because they've been so thwarted this entire time. So for all of those in the Democrat Party, the whole point is they can't identify their values because they whimsically change with the hour of what trans or activists or whatever is pulling the fishhook to the left. And at the end of the day, if you can't articulate what you stand for, that's why you have no party, and it's why you have no leader.
Harris, and Emily mentioned AOC a few times. She's the only one who got in double-digit support for who's the leader of our party. And underneath, you know, I'm interested in this. You see Kamala Harris, you see Bernie Sanders, you see Hakeem Jeffries. Those are not moderate figures there. Those are progressive. So the party's saying lean further to the left.
Well, and they've been saying that for a while. It just didn't time out well for Bernie Sanders. He was ahead of the game here, if you will. But with AOC, yeah, she's in double digits. But I'm with Emily on this. It's still really low. It's not like she's at 50% or 40 or 30 or 20. She's at 10. And so what that says is those far left policies are not resonating enough, even for perhaps the most well-known or popular young person who's running right now. This is also a generational shift, I think, that we're going to see in 2028. And it might be part of the reason why, you know, President Trump chose J.D. Vance. He is that next younger generation. I mean, he was very present in doing that and looking forward as well, maybe prophetic. But what's going on with AOC and Jasmine Crockett is more about a generational shift than it is about political policies. And why that matters? Well, sooner or later, they're going to be called on, well, what can you do for the American people that the Republicans haven't already done for 4 years? And so let's flip the switch. I like to look at the navel-gazers, the Democrats right now trying to figure out how to get along and commit crimes against each other with their nasty words and blah, 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 and the American people commit crimes against them, cussing them out. Moral crimes. But what I'm focused on right now is Republicans continuing to win. They need to rack up the deliverables, not just past promises, but make some new ones and make them count and make your word good. Stick together. My last guest, Matt Gorman, who was advisor with Tim Scott's campaign, said, look, they've got to start to focus on racking up those victories and telling people over and over and over what they can do for them. Sooner or later, the party that's had the White House 12 out of 16 years, the Democrats, are going to figure something out. And it may very well be that outsider, as Trump was 16 years ago.
David, yeah, you might be right about that. You know, David, I want to bring in the sage messenger of the Democratic Party. Her name's Jasmine Crockett. She brought in 4% support for being the leader of the party. She has a very specific fear 4 years from now. Listen to her fear.
You're close with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Some of your fellow House Democrats say, and not just progressives, by the way, we've heard that moderates have said this too, that they're ready to support her to challenge Chuck Schumer in a Democratic primary. Would you get behind that?
That's 4 years from now. If you were asking me at least in 2 years, then I would have an absolute answer. But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are watching his leadership in this moment. This is the moment. We don't even know what elections will look like in 4 years, if we will have elections in.
I mean, did I miss something? Are we not having elections in 4 years?
No, remember Oprah said if Trump gets elected, there will be no more elections. To all of your points, and to bring it to the point of piling on the wins, remember when I sat on this couch, as I have and said, issues and desired outcomes for the American people align, right? They want safety, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We want to eat. We want all the things that make our life better, more normal. We want to function. That's where Americans are. Where Jasmine Crockett or AOC or others are is because they lacked actual foundation in a value system, in a political value system, in policy. They're just spouting to get somewhere, which means they're hollow. Those that follow them will eventually fall. And I'm fine with that because they don't align with America and how we've evolved from a nation that is now about to reach our quarter millennium mark, from a nation that had, Yes, slavery, segregation, that has been through world wars, that has helped the world, that has had our own sets of issues, to the nation that we are today that is capable, able, and moving forward in well into the 21st century. And we're doing that because we're focusing on strength of our culture, our Constitution, strength of who we are as a people. Those are very basic things, but if you provide that as the Republican Party in your policy and in your wins, and you rack up those wins,
That's right.
people will stay with you rather than go for aberrant change.
Because you never really get tired of winning.
No,
Yep.
you don't.
And if you get no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, the Republican Party will be unstoppable.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.